Welcome back to Ayaz Tech. In this video, you are going to learn that how to create an autocomplete drop-down menu. So this is what you are going to build. So this is a simple input, and if you start typing something, it will show you the suggestions of the countries. So if you click outside of your drop-down, then it will hide the drop-down. And similarly, if you select something, for example, you search for Canada, and if you select this option, it will pick that option and it will put it into the input and it would hide the drop down. So this is how it will work. If you want to learn how to build this, please continue watching this video. First of all, we will set up our basic project. We will create a new file index.html, and here I will set up the Tailwind CSS. That would be very easy. I just would use the CDN URL like this. So let's do that. So this is my HTML file, HTML5 code, and here I'm going to put this CDN script. Once I have this one in my code, I can start using the Tailwind CSS, as you know. And other than that, if you want to have some suggestions while typing, I already have this extension. I just need to create this file. So because if we create this file, then you will see the suggestions. For example, here if I type class, in the class you will not see any suggestion from the Tailwind. So I would have to create a new file with this name, and with that you can see that we have the suggestion from Tailwind. So every time you create a new project that would use a Tailwind, you would have to create a new file, tailwind.config.js. So let's proceed from here. Now our Tailwind is ready to be used, so I will start creating the elements. So first of all, I need an input. So in the placeholder, you can put anything, select country name, and I'm going to run this project in the browser. So this is my input. I would have to design it. So before that, I would wrap it in another div that would be its container. And so I would add 100% width, and height should also be full, that is 100%. And I also want to add a background color, BG. Okay. I did not consume the 100% height, so I can just use another approach, that is you can use height 100 VH. VH means it would take 100% of the view. So if you save that, then this would definitely work. And I guess I want to make it lighter. So, all right. Now I want to bring the input in the middle. So I will create another div here, and I can say here flex justify center and align that is items center. So these are the styles of the flex. So you can see that I brought it in the middle of the page. Now I would add some classes to design the input. So for example, I want to add some padding. So px should be, I guess, 5 and py should be 3. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, it is much better, but let's increase the width. So the width of the input should be 100% of its parent. So for that, I would use w full. And in the parent div, I would say that is width of 72. Let's see. I want to increase that further. Uh, okay, let's try 96. I hope that is fine. After that, I want to add a very light border around it. For that, type border color, uh, a style, I guess. So these are all of the possible styles related to the border. So let's try border 2. And actually, only border means border 1 pixel width. Now I want to add the color as well for the border. So let's try this one. Okay, and maybe we should have a lighter version. Okay, and I want to have border radius. For that, I would add rounded. Okay, and maybe a bit more lighter. And after that, when you start typing, it should show the suggestions in the form of autocomplete. But before that, we have to create all of the skeleton for the dropdown. So let's first create the dropdown and style it. Once styling is done, then we will make it functional with the help of the JavaScript. So for that, I will create a div and I can style it. For example, the width should be 100% of the parent and the height should be, let's try 60. And I guess I want same kind of borders for this as well. So you can see that it is visible here. And now I want to have a white background color for that. For that I will use BG white. Okay. And after that, so it should be visible only if you click on that, or maybe if you start typing. But before that, we will create a class or maybe something like that. So when that class is added, it should be visible. So for example, by default, I want to keep it invisible. So you can use hidden class for that. And if you want to see that what are the styles behind the hidden class, you can just inspect it from here and see what's going on for the hidden class. You can see it is using display none for the hidden. So that's mean if you want to display it again, you have to remove the hidden class. So now we have to add and remove this class with the help of JavaScript. But before that, let's make another improvement. That is, for example, if there is another input below this area, uh, for example, here we have two inputs, okay, and they are vertically aligned. For example, column, or maybe I don't know, direction. Let's okay. So you can see that these are vertically stacked. And if you remove this, we don't need this one. I just want to show you the behavior that if hidden class is here, then it would pull down all of the elements below it. That would not be a good user experience. So we just want to improve that user behavior. So for example, this is the drop down. and this is the hidden class being applied. Uh, Actually, there is no hidden class, so I will just add display none. So as soon as the dropdown becomes visible, you will see that it would push the other elements below it, and that would not be a very nice user experience. So maybe instead of pushing everything downwards, maybe it should just show a dropdown over everything else behind below it. So for that, maybe try to make some changes. For example, I will try those styles that I want to try experiment on it in the inspect element. So for that, I will add position absolute, and with that, it is not looking good because I did not add the position relative to the parent element. For that, I would add position uh, relative. So now it is respecting the width of its parent. So now it is not pushing anything below it. It is just showing the drop down of menu over all of the elements that are below it. Okay. So I guess this is sufficient that I wanted to improve. So now I would add, as now that position absolute will do its job because we have experimented that in the inspect element. So I would just add the absolute here. And in order to make the absolute work correctly, we must have to add the relative in the parent. All right, now I can add the hidden class. And this hidden class should be visible only when user starts typing. So how how we have to detect that when user starts typing. For example, here I would capture an event that would be on key up, and I would create a function. I will call a function on key up, and I'm passing the event to it. So let's see how this is going to work. On the bottom, I am going to add a script tag, and in that script tag, I would create a function on key up, and I also need to receive the parameter for the event, and let me alert the e dot target dot value, and let's see if I get the value when I key up. I am getting an error, as you can see in the inspect element. So it is saying that event is not defined. So instead of putting dollar sign, I just should have added the event, and now hopefully it should work. Okay, you can see that it is getting all of the values on every key up. So that is great now. All right, instead of alerting this value, I will save it in a variable so that I could use it later. Uh, or you can call it keyword that we would use to search against the list that we will create later. And now I want to uh, display the drop-down menu because user has started to type something in the input. So for that, first of all, I would have to get the DOM element. In order to get that element, I would have to give that element an ID so that I could use that reference. So for that, I would use the name drop down. And here I would create a variable let drop down is equal to and document.qd selector. Here I would add the ID selector for the drop down. Now I have the drop down element in this variable, and I just want to add a class. I want to remove a class. For that, use keyword drop down dot class list dot toggle, or maybe remove because I literally want to remove the hidden class. So just give it the class that you want to remove it. Now, if you notice, if I start typing, it will immediately show the drop down because it has removed the hidden class from it, and without hidden class it will look like this that we have seen already. Okay, so after that, if user clicks somewhere else, or maybe if user clicks somewhere else, then we should try to close this drop down. So for that, I would add another, I will capture another click event on the body maybe. So for example, on click, and here if I say on click, or maybe for a, instead of doing it there, you can just register your event listener directly here. For that, type document dot add event listener, and here you have to give it, then give the name of that listener. For example, you want to capture the click event on the document. With that, it will call your function whenever somebody clicks on your document. But the issue is that if you click here as well, it will detect that event. So I don't want to hide my drop down when you click on the input. So in order to avoid that, I would have to make a minor change. For example, if you click on anything inside of this element, we don't want to uh, listen to that click event in this listener. So for that, I would add another event here on click, and on click, you can just say event dot stop uh, immediate propagation. I guess that will do the job. So it will not let the click event outside of this element. Otherwise, if you don't add this thing, then the click event will travel upward, and it will give that signal to the uh, parent document. Okay, so let's see if that works. Yes, it is working. You can see when I click on the parent, it is capturing that event. But when I click on this input element, it does not capture that event. So because I have stopped the propagation, so it will not let the event propagate to the parent. Okay, so similarly, if you click on the drop down, it is not hiding it, so that is perfect. After that, if you click on somewhere else outside of this area, it should hide the drop down. For that, we will just add the drop down class. So I will copy paste this one and paste here. Instead of removing the hidden class, I will add the hidden class. In this way, it will hide it. So you can see it has shown the drop down. If I click outside, it is hiding the drop down. So showing and displaying and hiding of the drop down has been done. Now we have to add some list inside the drop down, and we have to design that. And once that is done, we have to make it functional. So other than that, I don't need the second input now because I added that just for testing that how our dropdown would look like if it is visible. So I have removed it now. All right. Now for now, I'm going to remove the hidden class because I want to design my list into this dropdown. So for that, I will add few child divs into it. For example, this is option 1 and this is option 2, option 3. Okay. Now I want to style it. For that. First of all, I want to add some padding around it. For that, I will add a class px10 maybe. 10 is too much. Let's try 5. 5 is sufficient. I also want PY padding, that is vertical padding. Okay, now I want to add border bottom. P and B dash B. Okay, and the color should be border color. Uh, let's try border gray. It is too dark. I have to reduce the shade. Okay, maybe a bit lighter. All right. Now I also have to change the color of the text. It should be a bit lighter. For that, I would add text. And maybe let's try this one. This is a bit lighter, so I would try 600 shade. Okay, that's fine. Now we think that this is acceptable. I need to add the pointer cursor. After that, I think this is, I guess, acceptable. I also need the hover effect as well. So for that, in order to add the hover effect, just type hover, and on hover, I want to add the background color. And let's try this one. This is too much dark. I want to try lighter. Okay. And not only that, I also want to change the background color with the nice fade animation. For that, I will add the transition colors. Okay. So whenever you hover, it will change the color with the light animation. Now let's try to copy paste this option several times. And you can see that it is visible, but there is one issue that if you have too many options, then it will overflow the options, and it should actually scroll these options, otherwise it does not look good. For that, I will just add overflow y auto. That means whenever you will have data more than the available space, it will automatically show the scroll vertically. So you can see that scroll is working perfectly fine. And okay. Also, when you click on any of the option, it should hide the drop down. So we will hide the drop down with the help of a function. So I'm going to create a function hide drop down, and this is the code that actually hides the drop down. So I will copy that code and paste it here, and I would use this function instead on the click event. So now I can reuse this function every time I want to hide it. So for example, if user clicks on this event, this option, and you want to select this option, uh, for example, you have passed the selected option value, and here I will create another function that is select option. And first of all, I want to hide the drop down. Okay. Uh, okay. It is not working. Or maybe I have to click on the first option because I have added the click event on the first option only. So you can see that as soon as you select that option, it hides the drop down. But next, I have to display the value that I have selected from here into the drop down, into the input. So maybe I have to pass the exactly same thing. So now in the parameter, I'm getting the selected option, and I want to set it to the input. For that, I will select the input. Let input is equal to document dot query selector input, and here I would add. It is not a good idea to select directly target the input, because if there are multiple inputs in your website, then it can randomly pick one of them, and that may not be correct for your case. So instead of that, I would prefer to add an ID to your input. So for example, uh, autocomplete input. Okay. So now I can target this input with the help of this ID. Uh, Here, add the hash. Now I want to add the value to this input. For that, uh, selected option. Let's try if okay, let's try if that works. So I have selected, and it has added my selected option into the input value. So now next thing is that I don't want to copy paste these hard coded options. I want to display them with the help of the data that I have in my array. So let countries is equal to array. In this, I would add multiple countries, for example, ABC, XYZ. Okay. So let's suppose these are the countries and I want to display them in the options. So first of all, what I would do is that I will remove all of these options, and I would keep only one for my reference that I would use in my JavaScript. So this is what I want to do, is that as soon as my uh, document is ready to be used, I would immediately pick my dropdown element, and I would generate all of these options dynamically with the help of JavaScript and this array. So first of all, I would have to register an event, that document dot register add event listener, and load, I guess. So on load, I want to call this function, and this function would access this drop down element first. I already have this one here. I can get it from there. Okay. And in this, I want to insert all of this thing. So for example, first of all, I would generate the template. So let template option template is, so this is my option template that I would be using every time. So I am using backticks so that I could have line breaks in my string for the sake of simplicity. Okay, now I want to use this template to insert into the dropdown element. So let, or maybe dropdown element dot inner HTML is equal to this, and I just want to see if that works or not. So reload it. I can see that it looks like it is not working, maybe. And maybe my event is wrong, so I will add an alert to test it if it is working or not. If you reload it, I don't see any alert, so that means it is not correct. Let's try on load. Okay, that is not correct. Document. All right, we have an event named DOM content loaded. That is what I wanted to use. So that's mean if it will uh, call your function once your DOM content has been loaded. So let's see. You can see that alert is showing and it is adding the data inside your dropdown, but it is looking very strange here because in the inner HTML I am adding the drop down element instead of the string. So it was expecting a string. So let's try that. Okay, you can see that option one is showing. Let me remove the alert because that is annoying. Okay. All right, you can see that we have the option one, but we have a lot of other options that we want to show. So let me copy paste more options here. So these are just random strings that I have added in the countries just for testing purpose. Now I want to generate the new HTML that I want to replace with the inner HTML of the dropdown element. So we have the template. We can use this template to generate the final versions of the HTML. Let new HTML is equal to empty string, and I will uh, I will start a loop to concatenate every new option HTML string, and we will save in that new HTML. So let's run a loop against the countries dot for each country, and here are another approach. Instead of using for each, I can also use the map. Map would actually return a new array, or maybe let's do it this way. This is simpler. So anyways, here we have country in every iteration of the loop. So I would just move out this template from here. We don't need the variable yet. So here I would just say that I need to concatenate new HTML with this string. Okay, in this way it will preserve the previous HTML and it will keep adding new option into it. So for example, if it is on the option one in the first iteration of the loop, it will add this option. When it goes to the next iteration and on the second option, it will keep the previous option that we added earlier in the new HTML variable, and it will concatenate the next string after that string. So it will keep saving the previous data and it will not replace. If I do this one, then it will replace the old HTML every time. For example, if there was option that was added in the first iteration, in the second iteration, it will remove all of the HTML that we created in the first iteration and it will add new option and replace it with the old one. So that is not what we want. That's why I want to add plus equal that would concatenate. Anyways, so here I would just use the template variables and I want to display the country name here and here as well. And at the end, I would just use this new HTML that we would prepare. Okay, let's try that. You can see that it has loaded all of the countries dynamically. I did not copy pasted this option tag this time, and this is much better now. After that, if you click on any of these options, you will see that that specific option would be selected in the input. All right. At the end, I guess this is the last step that we need to do is that we need to autocomplete feature. We need to add the autocomplete feature for that. For example, if I typed A, it should show only those options which have the character A in it. So for that, let's see what we can do. Hmm. So first of all, I have to move this code into another function because this is the code that we have to reuse every time user types something. So we don't want to copy paste this code. We want to reuse it. That is the best practice. So that's why I am going to move it into the separate function. So first of all, I am going to create a function that is draw options. And in this function, I am expecting a parameter or an argument that is options that you want to draw. And I guess that's it. So I would just get this one, all of this, I guess, and show it here. Now, instead of using countries directly, I would use the option from here. And now I will call this function inside my event listener, and I would have to give it the countries so that it could start its iteration. All right, next, when user starts typing something, for example, on key up that we created here, we have the keyword. So here we will not only show the drop-down menu, we would also re-render the drop-down menu. For that, you can use a better name that can be maybe, let me try the rename. You can use render options. That is better, I guess. Okay. So whenever user makes a change in the input, then you want to re-render the drop-down based on the array that matches the keyword that the user has typed in the input. So for example, we have the keyword and I will search that keyword in the countries array. For that, I would filter the countries array, filter, and I need only that country that uh, that contains c dot includes, I guess. I need only that countries that matches the keyword. Okay, so let's try if that works. Or maybe you can save this part of code in a separate variable to make it simpler. Let filtered countries is equal to this and pass this variable to the render option. Okay, now I will start typing in this input. It is not working. The reason is that ABC is all caps in a capital, and I am typing in small letter. If you type capital letter, then it will match, but that should not be the case. It should just work for all of the cases. So it should be case insensitive, not case sensitive. To make it case insensitive, I can do something. For example, here I would convert all of the strings that are being compared into lowercase. In this way, it will convert both of the words or strings into lowercase. In this way, there would not be any difference and it would be able to match it very easily. So we don't have to worry about the case sensitivity anymore. So for example, I typed, yes, it still did not work. Let me see. Uh, uh, Maybe this one. Yeah, this one is working. So if you see, I am typing ABC in small letter and it is still showing the result. So that is working perfectly fine. If you want to type something else, it will work. So now I want to add some real country names. So I would just get them from internet. Uh, so this is a JSON. I would not copy all of them. I would just copy few of them because don't want to fill my space. I want to keep it simple. Okay. Now I have many more, but this time there is another thing that I have to worry about because earlier we had plain string in every item of the array, but this time I have an object in every element of array. So we have to take care of that. For example, uh, in the options of country, that we cannot do this because this is an object this time. We have to pick the name from it. So for that, I would just say dot name and dot name here as well. And after that, let's try. Another thing is that I have to fix it here. For example, this is an object. I cannot use to lowercase on object. So I have to use dot name because this name is here. And let's try it. I guess it should work, right? Okay. So you can see that it is showing the country names. For example, I type Canada. If I type Algeria or whatever, you can search from anything. Okay. Next thing is that I want to hide it. So let's add our hidden class again. So by default, it would stay hidden. And as soon as you start typing, you will see the results, right? So, and if you click outside, it would hide the drop down. And if you select something, it will hide the drop down and it would display that selected item in the input. So I think this is all that I wanted to show you in this video. If you guys have any kind of questions, then please feel free to ask them in the comment section and I would be happy to answer your questions. I hope that this video is useful for you. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click on the bell icon if you want to get notified for all of my upcoming videos. And also please like and share this video. Thanks for watching. See you next time.